All right, so we've already been getting a lot of questions on our Mint fiasco and what happened there. Apparently, there was a lot of competitors at King of the Hammers that had a similar issue. So I think a lot of people assumed that we had the same issue, and that wasn't really the case. So there's not like this huge problem to worry about with the Can-Am Maverick R steering flag or rack. Basically, it was really simple. We work on so many cars that this wasn't anyone's specific job, and none of us knew that that part was still in there. So there's a 2024, 2025, and 2026 rack for the Maverick R. And they are somewhat interchangeable, but there are some differences. So for instance, the car that me and Mark were in has 37-inch tires, is a pretty heavy car, and we cartwheeled it in the desert at King of the Hammers and raced it 2 days later with a 2024 steering rack in it. None of us actually knew that that was still in there. So the 2024 rack, the steering flag looks like this, and so does the mating surface of the rack. It's just a flat surface, 2 bolts go through, and that's what holds your entire steering system together. Not a great design. This has been a pretty well-known problem that the bolts shear off. I don't think that was the competitors' issues at King of the Hammers. I think there was something else going on there. I don't really know on that one. But as soon as the 2025 rack came out, we switched what we thought all of our race cars over to the 25. Like I said, different people working on cars. Mark's car isn't really like a CA prepped car per se at all times. It floats around his house, our house, out west. It's just everywhere. There's a lot going on. So we all dropped the ball on that one. Nobody realized that it had that rack in it. So moving on, in 2025, they did this, where it's still a flat surface, 2 bolts, but it has this little milled area on the flag and then a recessed area on the rack, and it kind of clips in. And that's supposed to take some of that load off of the bolts, but it's just not quite enough to really make a huge difference. So it's way better, but it still had some failures. So in 2026, they did this. Back to the flat surface, but they added these dowel holes, these little recessed holes in the flag, and there's recessed holes in the rack, and then there's some really nice dowel pins that hold all this together. So all of your shear strength is in those dowel pins, and then your bolts at that point, they're just there to clamp it in place. This is by far the strongest solution. However, this is now like a XRC rack, so it comes factory with the steering damper mounting bracket on it, as well as the end cap. And if you run our steering damper, you know that we have a different end cap that we run because we mount our damper right over top of the rack instead of hanging out in the air to get hit by rocks and sticks and things like that. So not a huge fan of the stock steering damper stabilizer, whatever you want to call that method. So for our setup, we were driving through the desert in a pretty fast section, and the car just started to the left. I got out, realized that the bolts on the rack had broken, and at that time also realized we had a 2024 steering rack in the car. So I carry a 2026 rack with us to all the races, just in case anybody needs it. And I happened to have one in the trailer. We were about 77 miles out, 78 miles into the race. It was about 8 miles for me to hike over a mountain and get back to the pit. The Mint 400 is not a chase race, so you can't have outside assistance on the race course. You have to be in a pit, or you have to be helped by another competitor. So the plan was for me to either hike back to pit or find another racer that was willing to carry this thing about 13, 14 miles from the previous pit out to us. It's super heavy, a little bulky, not great to carry in a race car. But we lucked out. Vaughn Gittin Jr. and Jeremy Dickinson were rolling through the pit, and a good friend of ours, Tony Polari, flagged them down and asked them if they would drop this out the window to me in the middle of the race course. So I hiked about 2 miles back because where we broke was a really fast section, and I didn't want to slow their race down. So I hiked about 2 miles back to meet them at a really sharp corner where I knew they were going to have to slow down so that they could throw the rack out at me, and that's what we did. So then I hiked back with this thing, but like I said, 2026 has some differences. So the end cap is a little different. Obviously the flag's a little different. And obviously we had a 2024 rack, so we still had the old style 2024 flag, which is just flat. So I had to disassemble the 2026 rack, use some 2024 parts to make it work. At that point, we couldn't run the damper because the end cap is a little different, and it turns out this casting edge is a little thicker, so I couldn't take the 2024 end cap and put on the 26 rack. So there's a lot going on in the middle of the desert with very minimal tools and resources. But we managed to cobble something together and get it going. We knew we had to take it easy on the car, but at that point, I just wanted to finish the Mint 400 because that's something we haven't been able to do yet, and it's always something silly like this. So we got it put back together, but at that point, I had the stock 2026 bolts and the stock 2024 style flag. So we knew we were kind of on a Band-Aid. We took it as easy as we possibly could on the car, but with that car being stretched and running a dual bypass shock in the rear, we've kind of gotten forced out of most of the UTV classes this year. A couple of the big OEM manufacturers came in and said they didn't like this type of car racing with their factory race cars. So those classes got taken away. So going forward, when it comes to the AORC racing series, I think is what they call it now, we kind of get put in with the trucks. So we were in a 4400 style truck class, which is fine. That's kind of where that car fits in for the most part. But there's no qualifying in that class, and you also start behind the trophy trucks. So a few hundred UTVs raced the day before, a bunch of class 10 cars, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, and then 73 trophy trucks in front of us on the same exact course for 400 miles. So to say the course was beat in is an understatement. So it was super rough. So no matter how easy we took it on the car, it was just absolutely brutal. So we ended up going down, I think they call it Beer Bottle Pass or something like that. It's a pretty rocky section. Broke the bolts again. At that point, it was like 8 o'clock at night. We'd been in the car for 8 hours. We were exhausted. The recovery guys were trying to wrap it up. We didn't want to make them hang around and wait on us to come in last place. So we made the call there, just drag the car out, meet our team at the crossroads, load it up, and try again next year. So going forward, we're gonna keep some of the cars, even cars that we don't prep in-house or whatever, a little bit more documented, make sure they've got all the latest and greatest parts. And that's kind of where you guys come in of, paying attention to the stuff we post and the reason we do the things we do, to make sure that you're getting the latest, greatest, newest, strongest parts for your racing program. So we're gonna make a few changes, update the car, and we'll be back for next time.